Today we shall be reading the very strange and memorable folktale, The Battle of the Birds, from Scottish Myths and Legends. I will tell you a story about the wren. There was once a farmer who was seeking a servant, and the wren met him and said, "What are you seeking?" "I am seeking a servant," said the farmer to the wren. "Will you take me?" said the wren. You poor creature, what good would you do?" "Try me," said the wren. So he engaged him, and the first work he set him to was the threshing in the barn. The wren threshed. What did he thresh with? Why, a flail, to be sure. And he knocked off one grain. A mouse came out, and she ate that. "I'll trouble you not to do that again," said the wren. He struck again, and he struck off 2 grains. Out came the mouse, and she ate them. So they arranged a contest to see who was strongest, and the wren brought his 12 birds, and the mouse her tribe. "You have a tribe with you," said the wren. "As well as yourself," said the mouse, and she struck out her leg proudly, but the wren broke it with his flail, and there was a pitched battle on a set day. When every creature and bird was gathering to battle, the son of the king of Tevertown said that he would go to see the battle, that he would bring sure word home to his father the king, who would be king of the creatures this year. The battle was over before he arrived, all but one fight between a great black raven and a snake. The snake was twined about the raven's neck, and although the raven held the snake's throat in his beak, it seemed as if the snake would get the victory over the raven. When the king's son saw this, he helped the raven, and with one blow took the head off the snake. When the raven had taken breath, he saw that the snake was dead. He said, "For your kindness to me this day, I will reward you. Come up now, on the root of my 2 wings." The king's son put his hands about the raven before his wings, and the bird took him over the 9 bens and 9 glens and 9 mountain moors. "Now," said the raven, "see you that house yonder? Go now to it. It is a sister of mine that makes her dwelling in it, and I will go bail that you are welcome. And if she asks you, 'Were you at the battle of the birds?' say you were. And if she asks, 'Did you see anyone like me?' say you did. But be sure that you meet me tomorrow morning here in this place." The king's son got good and right good treatment that night. Meat of each meat, drink of each drink, warm water to his feet, and a soft bed for his limbs. On the next day, the raven gave him the same flight over 6 bens and 6 glens and 6 mountain moors. They saw Buffy far off, but though far off, they were soon there. He got good treatment that night as before, plenty of meat and drink, and warm water to his feet, and a soft bed to his limbs. And on the next day, it was the same thing, over 3 bens and 3 glens and 3 mountain moors. On the 3rd morning, instead of seeing the raven, as the other times, who should meet him but the handsomest lad he ever saw, with gold rings in his ears, and with a bundle in his hands. The king's son asked this lad if he had seen a big black raven. Said the lad to him, "You will never see the raven again, for I am that raven. I was put under a spell by a bad druid. It was meeting you that loosed me, and for that you shall get this bundle." "Now," said the lad, You must turn back on the self-same course, and lie a night in each house as before. But you must not loose the bundle which I gave you till you are at the place where you would most wish to dwell. The king's son turned his back on the lad, and his face to his father's house, and he got lodging from the raven's sisters, just as he got it when he was going forward. When he was nearing his father's house, he was going through a thick wood. It seemed to him that the bundle was growing heavy, and he thought he would look at what was in it. When he loosed the bundle, he was astonished. In a twinkling there appeared, at the very grandest place he ever saw, a great castle, and an orchard about the castle, in which every kind of fruit and herb. He stood full of wonder and regret for having loosed the bundle, for it was not in his power to put it back again now, though he would have wished this pretty place to be in the pretty little green hollow that was opposite his father's house. But he looked up and saw a great giant coming towards him. "Bad's the place where you've built that house, king's son," says the giant. "Yes, but it is not here I would wish it to be, though it happens to be here by mishap," said the king's son. "What's the reward for putting it back in the bundle as it was before?" "What's the reward, you would ask?" inquired the king's son. "That you will give me the first son you have, when he is 7 years of age," said the giant. "If I have a son, you shall have him." In a twinkling, the giant put garden and orchard and castle in the bundle as they were before. "Now," says the giant, "take your own road, and I will take mine. But mind your promise, and if you forget, I will remember." The king's son took to the road, and at the end of a few days he reached the place where he was fondest of. He loosed the bundle, and the castle was just as it was before. And when he opened the castle door, he sees the handsomest maiden he ever cast eye upon. "Advance, king's son," said the pretty maid. "Everything is in order for you, if you will marry me this very day." "It's I that am willing," said the king's son, and on the same day they married. But at the end of a day and 7 years, who should be seen coming to the castle but the giant? The king's son was reminded of his promise to the giant. Until now he had not told his promise to the queen. "Leave the matter between me and the giant," said the queen. "Turn out your son," says the giant. "Mind your promise." "You shall have him," says the king, when his mother puts him in order for his journey. The queen dressed up the cook's son, and she gave him to the giant by the hand. The giant went away with him, but he had not gone far when he put a rod in the hand of the little laddie and asked him, "If your father had that rod, what would he do with it?" "If my father had that rod, he would beat the dogs and the cats, so that they shouldn't be going near the king's meat," said the little laddie. "You are the cook's son," said the giant, and caught him by the 2 small ankles and knocked him against the stone that was beside him. The giant turned back to the castle in rage and madness, and he said that if they did not send out the king's son to him, the highest stone of the castle would be the lowest. Said the queen to the king, "We'll trick him yet. The butler's son is of the same age as ours." She dressed up the butler's son, and she gave him to the giant by the hand. The giant had not gone far before he put the rod in the child's hand. "If your father had that rod," says the giant, "what would he do with it?" "He would beat the dogs and the cats whenever they came near the king's bottles and glasses." "You are the son of the butler," says the giant, and dashed his brains out too. The giant returned in the very great rage and anger. The earth quaked under the soles of his feet, and the castle shook, and all that was in it. "Out here with your son," says the giant, or in a twinkling the stone that is highest in the dwelling will be the lowest. So they had to give their son to the giant. When they were gone a little bit from the castle, the giant showed him the rod that was in his hand and said, "What would your father do with this rod if he had it?" The king's son said, "My father has a braver rod than that." And the giant asked him, "Where is your father when he has that brave rod?" And the king's son said, "He will be sitting in his kingly chair." And the giant understood that he had the right one. The giant took him to his own house, and he reared him as his own son. On a day of days, when the giant was away from home, the lad heard the sweetest music he ever heard in a room at the top of the giant's house. At a glance, he saw a maiden with the finest face he had ever seen. She beckoned to him to come a little bit nearer to her, and she said her name was Auburn Mary. Then she told him to go this time, but to be sure to be at the same place about that dead midnight. And as he promised he did. The giant's daughter was at his side in a twinkling, and she said, "Tomorrow you will get the choice of my 2 sisters to marry, but say that you will not take either but me. My father wants me to marry the son of the king of the Green City, but I don't like him." On the morrow, the giant took out his 3 daughters, and he said, "Now, son of the king of Tevertown, you have not lost by living with me so long. You will get to wife one of the 2 eldest of my daughters, and have leave to go home with her the day after the wedding." "If you will give me this pretty little one," said the king's son, "I will take you at your word." The giant's wrath kindled, and he said, "Before you get her, you must do 3 things that I ask you." "Say on," says the king's son. The giant took him to the byre. "Now," says the giant, 100 cattle are stabled here, and it has not been cleansed for 7 years. I am going to be away from home today, and if this byre is not cleaned before night comes, so clean that a golden apple will run from end to end of it, not only shall you not get my daughter, but 'tis only a drink of your flesh, goodly beautiful blood, that will quench my thirst this night." The lad began cleaning the byre, but he might just as well have been bailing the great ocean. After midday, when sweat was blinding him, the giant's youngest daughter came where he was, and she said to him, "You are being punished, king's son." "I am that," says the king's son. "Come over," says Auburn Mary, "and lay down your weariness." "I will do that," says he. "There is but death awaiting me, at any rate." He sat down near her. He was so tired that he fell asleep beside her. When he awoke, the giant's daughter was not to be seen, but the byre was so well cleaned that a golden apple would run from end to end of it, and raise no stain. In comes the giant, and he said, "Have you cleaned the byre, king's son?" "I have cleaned it," says he. "Somebody cleaned it," says the giant. "You did not clean it, at all events," said the king's son. "Well, well," says the giant, "since you've been so active today, you will set to this time tomorrow to thatch this byre, with birds down, from birds with no 2 feathers of one colour." The king's son was on foot before the sun. He caught up his bow and his quiver of arrows to kill the birds. He took to the moors, but the birds were not so easy to take. He was running after them till the sweat was blinding him. About midday, who should come but Auburn Mary. "You are exhausting yourself, king's son," says she. "I am," said he. "There fell but these 2 blackbirds, and both of one colour. Come over and lay down your weariness on this pretty hillock, said the giant's daughter. It's I am willing, said he, and though she would aid him this time too, and he sat down near her, and he was not long there till he fell asleep. When he awoke, Auburn Mary was gone. He thought he would go back to the house, and there he found the byre thatched with feathers. When the giant came home, he said, Have you thatched this byre, king's son? I thatched it, says he. Somebody thatched it, says the giant. You did not thatch it, said the king's son. Yes, yes, says the giant. Now, says the giant, there is a fir tree besides that lock down there, and there is a magpie nest in its top. The eggs you will find in that nest I must have for my breakfast tomorrow. Not one must be burst or broken, and there are 5 in the nest. Early in the morning the king's son went to where the tree was, and that tree was hard to hit upon. Its match was not in the whole wood. From the foot to the first branch was 500 feet. The king's son was going all round the tree, trying to find a foothold, when she came, who always was bringing help to him. You are loosing the skin of your hands and feet. Ack, I am, said he. I am no sooner up than down. This is no time for stopping, says the giant's daughter. Now you must kill me. Strip the flesh from my bones. Take all those bones apart and use them as steps for climbing the tree. When you are climbing the tree, they will stick to the bark as if they had grown out of it. But when you are coming down, you have to put your foot on each one. They will drop into your hand when you touch them. Be sure and stand on each bone. Leave none untouched. If you do, it will stay behind. Put all my flesh into this clean cloth by the side of the spring, at the roots of the tree. When you come to the earth, arrange my bones together, put the flesh over them, sprinkle it with water from the spring, and I shall be alive before you. But don't forget a bone of me on the tree. How could I kill you, asked the king's son, after what you have done for me? If you won't obey, you and I are done for, said Auburn Mary. You must climb the tree, or we are lost, and to climb the tree you must do as I say. The king's son obeyed. He killed Auburn Mary, cut the flesh from her body, and unjointed the bones, as she had told him. As he went up, the king's son put the bones of Auburn Mary's body against the side of the tree, using them as steps, till he came under the nest and stood on the last bone. Then he took the eggs, and coming down, put his foot on every bone, then took it with him, till he came to the last bone, which was so near the ground that he failed to touch it with his foot. He now placed all the bones of Auburn Mary in order, again at the side of the spring, put the flesh on them, and sprinkled it with water from the spring. She rose up before him and said, Didn't I tell you not to leave a bone of my body without stepping on it? Now I am maimed for life. You left my little finger on the tree without touching it, and I have but 9 fingers. The lad was mortified. Now, says she, go home with the eggs quickly, and you will get me to marry tonight, if you can know me. I and my 2 sisters will be arrayed in the same garments and made like each other. But look at me when my father says, Go to your wife, king's son, and you will see a hand without a little finger. He gave the eggs to the giant. Yes, yes, says the giant. Be making ready for your marriage. Then indeed there was a wedding, and it was a wedding. Giants and gentlemen, and the son of the king of the green city was in the midst of them. They were married, and the dancing began, and that was a dance. The giant's house was shaking from top to bottom. But bedtime came, and the giant said, It is time for you to go to rest, son of the king of Tevertown. choose your bride to take with you from amidst those. She put out the hand, of which the little finger was, and he caught her by the hand. You have aimed well this time too, but there is no knowing, but we may outwit you another way, said the giant. But to rest they went. Now, says she, sleep not, or else you are a dead man. We must fly quick, quick, for certain my father will kill you. Out they went, and on the blue-grey filly in the stable they mounted. Stop a while, says she, and I will play a trick on the old hero. She ran back and cut an apple into 9 shares, and put 2 shares at the head of the bed, and 2 shares at the foot of the bed, and 2 shares at the door of the kitchen, and 2 shares at the big door, and 1 outside the house. The giant awoke and called, Are you asleep? Not yet, said the apple that was at the head of the bed. At the end of a while he called again. Not yet, said the apple that was at the foot of the bed. A while after this he called again, Are you asleep? Not yet, said the apple at the kitchen door. The giant called again. The apple was at the big door answered. You are not going far from me, says the giant. Not yet, said the apple that was outside the house. You are flying, says the giant. The giant jumped on his feet, and to the bed he went, but it was cold and empty. My own daughter's tricks are trying me, said the giant. Years after them, says he. At the mouth of day, the giant's daughter said that her father's breath was burning her back. Put your hand quick, said she, in the ear of the grey filly, and whatever you find in it, throw behind us. There was a twig of the sloe tree, said he. Throw it behind us, said she. No sooner did he that, than there were 20 miles of blackthorn woods so thick that scarce a weasel could go through it. The giant came headlong, and was soon head and neck in the thorns. My own daughter's tricks are here as before, said the giant, but if I had my own big axe and wood knife here, I would not be long making a way through this. He went home for the big axe and the wood knife, and sure he was not long on his journey, and once he was behind the big axe, he was not long making a way through the blackthorn. I will leave the axe and the wood knife here till I return, said he. If you leave 'em, said a hooded crow that was in the tree. We'll steal 'em. If you are going to do that, says the giant, I must take them home. He returned and left them at the house. At the heat of day, the giant's daughter felt her father's breath burning her back. Put your finger in the filly's ear and throw behind you whatever you find in it. He got a splinter of grey stone, and in a twinkling there was 20 miles, but breadth and height, of grey rock behind them. The giant came full pelt, but past the rock he could not go. The tricks of my own daughter are the hardest thing that ever met me, said the giant. But if I had my lever and my mighty mattock, I would not be long in making my way through this rock also. There was no help for it, but he must go home for them. Once he had them, he was not long in making a road through the rock. I will leave the tools here, and I will return no more. If you leave 'em, said the hoodie. We will steal 'em. Do that if you will, there is no time to go back. At the time of breaking the watch, the giant's daughter said that she felt her father's breath burning her back. Look in the filly's ear, king's son, or else we are lost. He did so, and it was a bladder of water that was in her ear this time. He threw it behind them, and there was a freshwater lock 20 miles in length and breadth behind them. The giant came on, and with the speed he had on him, he was in the middle of the lock before he could stop himself, and he went under, and he rose no more. On the next day the young companions were come in sight of his father's house. Now, said she, my father is drowned, and he won't trouble us any more. But before we go further, said she, go you to your father's house, and tell that you have me with you, but let neither man nor creature kiss you, for if you do, you will not remember that you have ever seen me. Everyone he met gave him welcome and luck, and he charged his father and mother not to kiss him, but as mishap was to be, an old greyhound was indoors, and she knew him. She jumped up to his mouth, and after that he did not remember the giant's daughter. She was sitting at the well's side as he left her, but the king's son was not coming. In the mouth of night she climbed up into a tree of oak that was beside the well, and she lay in the fork of that tree all night. A shoemaker had a house near the well, and about midday on the morrow the shoemaker asked his wife to go for a drink out of the well. When the shoemaker's wife reached the well, she saw in the water the reflection of her that was in the tree, and thinking it was her own reflection, as she never thought till now that she was so handsome, she gave a cast to the dish that was in her hand, and it was broken on the ground, and she took herself to the house without vessel or water. Where is the water, wife? Said the shoemaker. You shambling, contemptible old carle, without grace, I have stayed too long, your water and wood skivvy. I think, wife, that you have gone crazy. Go, you daughter, quickly, and fetch a drink for your father. His daughter went, and in the same way, so it happened to her. She never thought till now that she was so beautiful, and she took herself home. Where is my drink? Said her father. You homespun shoe carl, do you think I am fit to be your skivvy? The poor shoemaker thought that they had both taken leave of their senses, and he went himself to the well. He saw the reflection of the maiden in the water, and he looked up into the tree, and there was the finest woman he ever saw. Your seat is precarious, but your face is fair, said the shoemaker. Come down, for there is need of you for a short while in my house. The shoemaker realised that it was the sight of the maiden that had driven the women folk mad. The old man took her to his house, telling her that he had but a poor bothy, but that she should get a share of all that was his. One day a year later, the shoemaker had shoes ready, for on that very day the king's son was to be married. The shoemaker was going to the castle with the shoes of the young people, and the girl said to the shoemaker, I would like to get a sight of the king's son before he marries. Come with me, said the shoemaker. I am well acquainted with the servants at the castle, and you shall get a sight of the king's son and all the company. And when the gentles saw the pretty woman that was among them, they took her to the wedding room, and they filled for her a glass of wine. When she was going to drink the wine, a flame went up out of the glass, and a golden pigeon and a silver pigeon sprang out of it. They were flying about when 3 grains of barley fell on the floor. The silver pigeon alighted and ate them. Said the golden pigeon to him, If you remember, it was I that cleared the byre. You would not eat without giving me a share. Again there fell 3 other grains of barley, and the silver pigeon alighted and ate them up as before. If you remember, it was I that thatched the byre. You would not eat without giving me a share, said the golden pigeon. 3 other grains fell, and the silver pigeon alighted and ate them up. If you remember, it was I that harried the magpie's nest. You would not eat without giving me a share, said the golden pigeon. I lost my little finger bringing it down, and I am missing it still. The king's son heard these words, and he knew who it was that was before him. Well, said the king's son to the guests at the feasts, when I was a little younger than I am now, I lost the key of a casket that I had a new key made, but after it was brought to me, I found this old one. Now I'll leave it to anyone here to tell me what I am to do. Which of the keys should I keep? My advice to you, said one of the guests, is to keep the old key, for it fits the lock better and you're more used to it. Then the king's son stood up and said, I thank you for wise advice and an honest word. This is my bride. She is the daughter of a giant, and she saved my life at the risk of her own. I'll have her another woman. So the king's son married Auber Mary, and the wedding lasted long, and all were happy. But all I got was butter on a live coal, porridge in a basket, and they set me for water to the stream, and the paper shoes came to an end.